Good morning, and welcome to First Parish in Brookline. We are a welcoming Unitarian Universalist congregation, open and affirming to all people. Whoever you are, whatever your gifts or abilities may be, however you identify your gender or sexual orientation, wherever your life and faith journey have taken you, you are welcome here. This morning, we focus on pathways to peace in our lives, in our service here, and for some members of the congregation by marching to the Lewis D. Brown Mother's Day Walk. Because so many of our young people and families are marching, there will be no religious exploration services today. However, the nursery will be open for our youngest children. After the service, please join us for coffee hour through this door to my left at the Lion Chapel. If you pick up a striped mug, everyone will know that you have a particular interest in sharing conversation with others today. And I still thank Madeline Fine for that day I carried a striped mug, and she approached me with her clipboard and looped me into a committee 16 years ago. And happy Mother's Day. For some of us, this day is about love and gratitude, and for others of us, it can be more complicated. Wherever your heart is with this day, we honor you. Welcome to one and all.
Good morning. Our opening words, our call to worship this morning is in your gray hymnal, although you really only have one line. It's a responsive reading. This is your one line, and so you will follow me. And of course, I did not bring a hymnal. This is "It is Possible to Live in Peace" by Mahatma Gandhi. If someone with courage and vision can rise to lead in nonviolent action, the winter of despair can, in the twinkling of an eye, be turned into the summer of hope. It is possible to live in peace. Nonviolence is not a garment to be put on and off at will. Its seat is in the heart, and it must be an inseparable part of our being. It is possible to live in peace. Nonviolence, which is a quality of the heart, cannot come by an appeal to the brain. It is a plant of slow growth, growing imperceptibly but surely. It is possible to live in peace. If a single person achieves the highest kind of love, it will be sufficient to neutralize the hate of millions. It is possible to live in peace. If we are to reach real peace in this world, and if we are to carry on a real war against war, we shall have to begin with the children. It is possible to live in peace. The future depends on what we do in the present. It is possible to live in peace. Come, my friends, come into this beloved and sacred space and let us worship together. And now, please, rise as you are willing or able and join in singing our opening hymn, number 159, "This Is My Song."
At this time, I'd like to invite Carrie Ann and Henry Tester to come forward and light the chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith the world over. As they light the chalice, please join me in unison in our affirmation printed in the order of service in English and then in Spanish. We give ourselves one unto another, covenanting to walk together as a congregation, promising faithfully to watch over one another and to delight for love to abide in our midst. Nos entregamos y nos comprometendo a caminar juntos como congregación, prometiendo con mucha fe, comernos mutuamente y darnos el amor que permaneció en nosotros. Each week we also light 2 candles of peace, each candle representing a different place on earth that we want to lift up and remember this morning as a sacred encounter with the world. There are untold numbers of places on earth that need peace. Today, we remember 2 places that we especially hold close in this service and throughout the week ahead. After each of the candles is lit, we will speak the words of peace in English, Arabic, and Hebrew. Peace, salam, shalom. Our first candle is lit for the Mediterranean Sea, where 65 sub-Saharan migrants drowned after their boat capsized off the coast of Tunisia as they tried to cross from Libya to safety in Europe. May this humanitarian crisis soon find resolution. Peace, salam, shalom. Our second candle is lit for Sweden, where 15-year-old schoolgirl Greta Thunberg initiated a school-wide strike for climate movement, which has surged globally. In March 2019, an estimated 1.4 million students in 112 countries around the world joined her call in striking and protesting for climate change. Peace, salam, shalom.
Today, we're exploring the various pathways to peace in our world, in our communities, in our families, and in our own hearts and minds. Our meditation and prayer will be a bit longer this morning, so make yourselves comfortable. Close your eyes if that is comfortable for you, or just cast them downward. We begin by blessing our peace walkers this morning with this meditation from Thich Nhat Hanh. Take my hand. We will walk. We will only walk. We will enjoy our walk without thinking of arriving anywhere. Walk peacefully. Walk happily. Our walk is a peace walk. Our walk is a happiness walk. Then we learn that there is no peace walk, that peace is the walk, that there is no happiness walk, that happiness is the walk. We walk for ourselves, we walk for everyone, always hand in hand. Walk and touch peace every moment. Walk and touch happiness every moment. Each step brings a fresh breeze. Each step makes a flower bloom under our feet. Kiss the earth with your feet. Print on earth your love and happiness. Earth will be safe when we feel in us enough safety. Amen. Now we begin our meditation on peace by taking a deep breath in. We breathe in peace. And breathing out, we breathe out peace. We picture the earth, our own blue-green marble, floating in space. Breathing in, we send peace to the whole earth. Breathing out, we send peace to all living things. Breathe in, breathe out, saying to ourselves, peace. And now we picture our beloved country with all its many and varied lands, all of the climates and terrain, all plants and animals and beings. Breathing in, we send peace to all that has life in our country. Breathing out, we say to ourselves, peace. Now picture the communities that surround us, the people, the animals, the flowers and trees, and all living things. Breathing in, we send peace to our surrounding communities. Breathing out, we send peace to all that lives here with us. We say to ourselves, peace. And now, in your heart and mind, take in all of this congregation, both those present and those not with us today, picturing all of the faces you love. Breathing in, we send peace to all our beloveds in our congregation, sending them our strength and love and deep peace of mind and heart. Breathing out, we send them our peace, saying to ourselves, peace. And finally, place your hands over your heart and breathe in peace for yourself, recognizing your own essential goodness, offering yourself this gift, and breathing out, send that peace deeply into your own heart, saying to yourself, peace. Peace is our birthright. It is what we and our world deserve. May this peace stay with you and with all of us today and every day. And now, please join me in a moment of silence.
Our reading at this time is Pathways by Leigh Forter. There are infinite paths to choose, and I have chosen many. I have slammed into dead ends, twisted through turning trails that ended at loss, followed others' routes to eventually realize they weren't mine. Even dared to venture into the great unknown, where writing a new way was the only way. But of all the countless roads I wandered, endless directions I explored, and limitless possibilities I could have taken, there is one thing that I have come to know. No matter what surrounds me, lies ahead or behind me, or who is beside me, it is what is happening in me that will shine a guiding light, conquer the journey, and land me victorious after any travel. Because perfection comes not when you're watching golden sunsets over paradise, but when you have grown unbreakable, at peace within. Today's offering will be given to the Lewis D. Brown Peace Institute, a center of healing, teaching, and learning for families and communities impacted by murder, trauma, grief, and loss. The heart of their work is with families impacted by murder on both sides, and they have supported their community through tools, training, and technical assistance for 20 years. If you are visiting First Parish for the first time today, please feel free to let the basket pass you by. We are so glad you're here. And if you are writing a check, please write the check to First Parish in Brookline and put in the memo Lewis D. Brown. And if you are writing a check for your pledge, please put in the memo pledge. The offering will now be gratefully received.
all that you have given and for all that we have received, we say thank you.
This is what may be a familiar piece from the Tao of Pu. "Where are we going?" said Pu, hurrying after him and wondering whether it was to be an explore or a what shall I do about you-know-what. "Nowhere," said Christopher Robin. So they began going there, and after they had walked a little way, Christopher Robin said, "What do you like best in the world, Pooh?" And of course, what Pooh liked doing best was going to Christopher Robin's house and eating. But since he'd already said that, we won't need to say it again. "I like that too," said Christopher Robin. "But what I like doing best is nothing." "How do you do nothing?" asked Pooh, after he had wondered for a long time. "Well, it's when people call out at you just as you're going off to do it. 'What are you going to do, Christopher Robin?' And you say, 'Oh, nothing,' and then you go and do it." "Oh, I see," said Pooh. "This is a sort of nothing that we're doing right now," said Christopher Robin. "Oh, I see," said Pooh again. "It means just going along, listening to all the things you can't hear, and not bothering." "Oh, I see," said Pooh, and he did. And now, please rise as you are willing and able. What are we singing?
1009.
And join in singing hymn 1009, which is the beautiful meditation on breathing. All right. I breathe in peace when I breathe out. I breathe out love when I breathe in. I breathe in peace when I breathe out. I breathe out love when I breathe in. I breathe in peace when I breathe out. I breathe out love when I breathe in. I breathe in peace when I breathe out. I breathe out love when I breathe in. I breathe in peace when I breathe out. I breathe out love when I breathe in. I breathe in peace when I breathe out. I breathe out love. You just heard one example of the value of nothing. And there's another story about an incident in the life of the Japanese Emperor Hirohito. Now, being emperor in one of the most frantically Confucian countries in the world is not necessarily all that relaxing. From early morning till late at night, practically every minute of the emperor's time is filled in with meetings, audiences, tours, inspections, and who knows what. And through a day so tightly scheduled that it would make a stone wall seem open by comparison, the emperor must glide like a great ship sailing in a breeze. In the middle of a particularly busy day, the emperor was driven to a meeting hall for an appointment of some kind. But when he arrived, there was no one there. The emperor walked into the middle of the great hall, stood silently for a moment, and then bowed to the empty space. He turned to his assistants, a large smile on his face, and said, "We must schedule more appointments like this. I haven't enjoyed myself so much in a long time." When my daughter Amy was about 5 years old, she read aloud a bumper sticker that said, "Stop the war, no more bombs." "What are you doing to stop the war, Mommy?" she asked. Well, that gave me pause. What indeed? She looked to me, her mom, for protection and love. She expected me to have all the answers. We talk about the golden rule. We coach our children into making peace on the playground, insist on teaching anti-bullying in schools, and we need all of that. But what are we doing to stop the wars? What are we doing for peace? Peace in our home, our communities, peace on the earth, peace in our own hearts and minds. Buddhists talk about walking the pathless path, a path that is not a physical journey, but an inner one we take in our hearts and minds, moving beyond hopes and fears, memories, traumas, conditioning, to find inner peace and freedom. When we grasp those moments free from our conditioning, in meditation, in walks in nature, in the joy of a child's smile and the eyes of a dear friend, we are on the pathless path. That path is available to all of us, and it has many variations, as many as there are human beings. We need peace in the world, and the path we choose is up to us. Work for peace is part of our heritage as UUs. As far back as Noah Worcester, who founded the Massachusetts Peace Society in the 1800s, and Aidan Ballou, a Unitarian minister turned Universalist, who wrote about non-resistance in the late 1800s as taught through the life and teachings of Jesus. The story goes that in his early years, Ballou, like other boys his age, was excited about guns and the soldiers he saw marching in parades in his Rhode Island hometown. He told his father, "I want to be a soldier and go to war." But when he was 10, Aidan began to study the Bible and the teachings of Jesus about turning the other cheek when someone struck you. He was confused by that. "What if I want to hit someone back?" he said. "Maybe they deserve to be punished." But the lesson stayed with him. As a teenager, Ballou had a dream that his brother Cyrus, who had died, came to him and told him that he should be a minister. His church had no minister at that time, so even though he was scared by the idea of standing up in front of people, Ballou announced in church that he would preach next week. And it went so well that he decided to become a minister and left behind all thoughts of being a soldier. As Aidan Ballou grew up, he saw that when people were punished for fighting, it didn't make them any more peaceful. When nations used war, it didn't make them more peaceful either. There's another story that when Ballou was a teacher, because you couldn't earn enough to live on being a minister in a small church in those days, there was a young boy who was always misbehaving in class. Finally, Baloo got out the cane to spank him, but he couldn't do it. So he handed the cane to the boy and said, "I must be a bad teacher for you to be misbehaving all the time, so you should spank me." Of course, the young boy burst into tears, but he didn't misbehave in class again. Baloo became more and more convinced that if we really want peace, we have to be more peaceful ourselves and love our neighbors. To illustrate his idea of non-resistance, he told a story about a town in Austria. A regiment was ordered to march into a small town in the Tyrol, he said, and take it. The Christian colony there was informed of this plan ahead of time and responded, "If they will take it they must." When the soldiers entered the town, they looked for an enemy and saw only farmers, blacksmiths, and women at work at their usual tasks. "Where are your soldiers?" they asked. "We have none," was the reply. "But we have come to take the town." "It lies before you," they said. "But is there nobody here to fight?" said the commander. "No, we are all Christians," they replied. The perplexed commander then said, "If there is nobody to fight with, of course we cannot fight. It is impossible to take a town such as this." So he ordered the horses' heads to be turned around, and they carried the soldiers out of the village as guiltless as they had entered, and perhaps somewhat wiser. When he was 37, Aden Baloo started a community called Hopedale in Milford, Mass., where he and a group of friends all lived by the rule of nonviolence. He hoped that this group living peacefully together would be a model that would influence others in the world. Even though that community only lasted 15 years, it was a beautiful example of putting your ideas into action. Aden Baloo's writings were later sent to Leo Tolstoy in Russia, who incorporated some of his ideas into his own writing. Tolstoy was very surprised that Aden Baloo's ideas were not more widely embraced. And later, as some of us know, Tolstoy's writing influenced Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King. Putting your beliefs into action reminds me of how I became a committed vegetarian around 10 years ago. I had tried on and off over the years, but I always fell off the wagon, usually at the holidays. But this time it stuck. It had to do with a man named Will Tuttle, a lamb, and a small dog. I was meeting regularly at that time with a group of yoga teachers. One of them, Claire, invited Will to come to dinner, vegetarian of course, and tell us about his book, The World Peace Diet. Tuttle's strong belief, in a nutshell, based on his research and his travels across the country, visiting places where animals are raised for food, is that the most effective thing we can do to promote peace and justice worldwide, for humans as well as for non-humans, is to educate, encourage, and inspire other people to stop hurting and eating animals. That night, I was very moved by his story, but it wasn't until the next time our group met that I was convinced. My friend Claire had 2 small dogs. She walked regularly at the farm across the street. In recent weeks, she told us, there were lambs in the field, and she'd started visiting them, stroking them gently when they'd come to the fence. One day that week, Claire went to the fence, and one of the lambs put his head in her cupped hand and looked up into her eyes as if, she said, he was saying goodbye. The next day, she saw a sign at the farm stand that said, "Fresh lamb, available next week." Claire thought about her small dogs and how much she cherished them. How can we treat some animals as family and kill others just as dependent on us for food? She committed in that moment not to eat meat any longer. I went home and looked at my own small dog and thought the same thing. How can I, who don't believe in killing at all, make such a compromise, especially when there are so many other good options for food? I have been a vegetarian since that day. Vegetarianism is just one of many paths to peace. Not the right one for everyone, for sure. But it's one more way to follow a pathless path, the one we follow in our own hearts. Those stories about Pooh and the Emperor, about embracing the idea of nothing, those stories touched me deeply. Many of us can relate to the relief of a canceled meeting or some unexpected space in our busy lives when we get to take a breath and simply be. That is, if we don't fill it back up with things from our to-do list. Those spaces are part of the pathless path too. Ways for us to wake up for a moment, to notice what's around us, to simply be in our own bodies. What a blessing that nothing is. Even if we have pain, we can be with the pain. We can offer it our love, our breath, our tenderness. If we don't run away from this path, it has a lot to teach us about being at peace with what is. While we are here today, many members of our congregation are walking in the Louis D. Brown Mother's Day Peace Walk. They're walking in solidarity with our neighbors in Boston in a moving prayer for peace on this day that is set aside to honor mothers and mothering of all kinds. Louis, I learned from the Institute's website, was an avid reader, a bookworm. He was caring and compassionate, loved Chinese food, hated doing the dishes. And at just 15, he was committed to making his community a more peaceful and just place through the Teens Against Violence group he was part of. Louis believed all young people had the potential to be peacemakers, regardless of what side of the streets they came from. He had the long-term goal of becoming the first Black president of the United States, but Louis was killed in the crossfire of a shootout in 1993. Louis's parents, Joseph and Tina Sherry, founded the Peace Institute in 1994 to carry on the peacemaking work Louis had started, with the goal of teaching young people the value of peace, focusing on assets in their communities and transforming society's response to homicide. The Peace Institute has developed a nationally recognized peace education curriculum and initiated a statewide Survivors of Homicide Victims Network for family members of murder victims, using their experience and expertise to shape public health and safety policy. This peacemaking work all started with Tina's decision in 1994 to meet the mother of her son's killer, Charles Bogues, and eventually to meet and to forgive Bogues himself. We are all impacted when violence happens, says Sherry. It's not just the individual, she said about her decision to meet with Bogues. We pay our dues to society, and that's what we call justice. That's man's justice for me, she said. I feel that by extending my hand and my heart for forgiveness, that is God's justice. It is a part of my inner healing. Tina Sherry has walked a mother's path that she could never have imagined before the death of her son, a path of justice and love. She has forged her own path to peace. In 2006, the UUA General Assembly posed a question to be considered by congregations over the following 4 years. Should the UUA reject the use of any and all kinds of violence and war to resolve disputes between peoples and nations and adopt a principle of seeking just peace through nonviolent means? This question led to a statement of conscience adopted at the 2010 UUA General Assembly.
The UU Creating Peace Statement of Conscience begins. We believe all people share a moral responsibility to create peace. Mindful of both our rich heritage and our past failures to prevent war, and enriched by our present diversity of experience and perspective, we commit ourselves to a radically inclusive and transformative approach to peace. From the development of the Statement of Conscience, the Peace Ministry Network evolved, whose stated purpose is to institutionalize this energy at the national level to encourage a culture of peace within our families, our association, our communities, and throughout the world. Active peacemaking is our heritage as UUs, and in our congregations, we're asked to face this question. What actions are each of us taking to ensure lasting peace in ourselves, our relationships, our congregations, our society, and the world? So here comes that question we started with. What are you and I doing to stop war, to make peace in the world? One thing I've noticed about living in a New England suburb, which I've done for most of my life, is that we're actually pretty isolated from each other. Saul Alinsky, founder of the first and largest network of multi-faith community organizations, said that conversations with our neighbors are the most challenging and the most revolutionary ones that we can have. Do we really dare to find out what our neighbors are thinking? It's an interesting question. But if we really did get to know our neighbors one-on-one, in one-on-one conversations, what interesting, even shocking things might we learn? When I think about the conversations we might be having, these are some of the questions that occur to me. Who are on the fringes of our community that we should be talking to? Who are the marginalized? What voices aren't being heard? Who is angry and what are they angry about? And what, if anything, could we do about that? What are the intractable injustices? What has been tried and failed and what has succeeded? We need to ask more questions of ourselves and of others. As the Lakota Sioux elder Black Elk puts it, there are many kinds of peace, and the first resides in each of us. We need to keep finding ways to cultivate pathways to peace within ourselves. Being peace, Thich Nhat Hanh says, is the beginning. Peace is every step, he says. Smile, breathe, and go slowly. May it be so. Amen. Blessed be. And now, please rise as you are willing and able, and join in singing our closing hymn, Let There Be Peace on Earth.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it
Please join me in the unison affirmation as Reverend Lisa extinguishes the chalice. We extinguish the flame and not the light of truth, the warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us as gifts into the world.
And now please take the hand or touch the shoulder or elbow or stand close to the person next to you for our benediction. These are the words of Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu from 6th century BC. If there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. If there is to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. My dear friends, go out into the world and be a blessing to all those you meet, and may you yourselves be blessed. Amen.